everyone. Welcome to our program, Meet the Musicians. I'm your host, Terry Kelly, and today we're talking with Bill Sullivan and George Kelly about a concert that will take place on March 29th, 2015 at the Lawrence Public Library, 51 Lawrence Street, Lawrence, Mass. Welcome, Bill. Welcome, George.
Hi, Terry. Nice to be here today. And George, it's good to see you as always.
Same here.
So now, Bill, why are you here?
Well, March is just upon us, and we have tremendous activities going on in the city of Lawrence during Irish Heritage Month. We kick it off on Sunday, March 1st at the Heritage State Park Visitor Center. We have an exhibit entitled Hometown Heroes. It was created by several of our members in the Hibernians, Frank Ford and Joe Danahy. It's about the Civil War, because of course this year marks the 150th anniversary of the end of the American Civil War. And there were many Lawrencians and people from the surrounding towns who took part in that war, fighting, of course, for the North. And basically, this exhibit is about many of them. And that day we have a speaker who's going to speak on something called the other April 19th. When we think of April 19th in this part of the country, we think of the Battle of Lexington and Concord. But there's something that occurred on April 19th involving the Civil War, and in particular, people from Lawrence.
Oh my goodness,
So
that's exciting.
It is, and that's going to kick that off. That's at the Heritage State Park Visitor Center at 2 o'clock. The speaker that day is Dennis Ahern. He's from Acton, Mass. We've never had him in this area. He'll do a great job. And of course, the next day, Monday, March 2nd, we raise the Irish flag on the North Common, the Campione Common, at 11 o'clock. We invite people to come to that if they'd like. It's a great day. We're hoping for another great day as that flag flies over the city of Lawrence, as it has for many years during the month of March.
And it may be flying over a snowbank.
It very well could be. It probably will be, in all honesty, because this has been one of the snowiest winters we've had. And then the following Saturday, we have our 144th annual dinner, dance, and banquet. And that it's going to be held at the Relief Inn in South Lawrence on 1 Market Street. And we're honoring that night 2 people from the greater Lawrence area. One is the Irishman of the Year, Tom Canny, a native Lawrencian who now lives in Methuen. He was named as the 2015 Irishman of the Year. And we're going to give our Richard Cardinal Cushing Award to someone, Sister Mary Murphy. She is the founder of Notre Dame Cristo Rey High School here in Lawrence.
Oh, yeah.
And she's done tremendous work in the community. That school is now in its 11th year and has truly blossomed. And those are 2 great awards. Of course, then we come to the very next day, Sunday, March the 8th. St. Patrick's Day Parade kicks off at 1 o'clock that day. It should be a great day for the Irish and those who wish they're Irish that day, no matter what your nationality is. It'll kick off right here on the north side of the city and end up on the south side.
Well, everyone turns Irish that day.
They certainly do, and the crowds are always great to cheer people on. We're hoping for a great day that day. The following Friday, we have our 46th annual Hibernian Luncheon. And that day we're going to give out an award that day, the Johnny Fenton Award. John Fenton, of course there were 2 John Fentons. One was the father and one was the son. They were both judges. This is named after his father, John Fenton, who passed away last year. His dad, John Fenton, was of course from Lawrence, a Hibernian, and went on to become a national president of the AOH in America. And he was president on the 100th anniversary of the order back in 1936. And we give an award out to someone who does great community service. And the winner of that, the recipient this year, I should say, is Francisco Urena, well-known person from the area. Francisco, of course, was a veteran of the Iraq War. He has a Purple Heart. He's done great community service. He was a Lawrence Veterans Service Director here. He went on to Boston to be Commissioner of Veterans Services, and just recently appointed by Governor Baker to be the Secretary of Veterans Affairs for the state.
Yes, and he was my student at Lawrence High School when I taught there.
Excellent.
Wonderful
so
kid.
You'll see you'll be able hopefully to see him along that day, and of course we'll have some very famous other people coming that day. We expect the governor there, among other personalities. But we don't want to say too much right now. People may want to hear what's going on.
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting.
Yes, and then on Sunday, March the 15th, we have a speaker coming. He teaches at Merrimack College, Dr. Sean Conlon. He's going to speak on slavery and in particular in Maryland. He's also the author of a book, so it should be an interesting his talk that day. And the following Sunday we have a Lawrencian who now lives in New York coming to speak on his uncle. His uncle was Timothy Dacey, and Timothy Dacey was from Ireland originally. He came to live in Lawrence, and he was involved in the Fenian uprisings. Actually had to take part right up here on the, he got his military experience, we should say, in the Civil War, like many of them did, the Fenians. And there was a case that in 1867 involving an incident that occurred in the Canadian border, on the U.S. border. Again, I don't want to say too much because we want people to come and hear these talks. And then, of course, we'll come out. We have on the 29th that month, we have that wonderful concert that you and George will be taking part in. So it's going to be a great month. The talks at the Heritage State Park all begin on a Sunday. The only Sunday that's not on is the 8th, the day of the parade, and the day of the concert at 2 o'clock. They're all free. We encourage people to come, have a great time, enjoy the speakers, and I think you'll learn a lot, not just about the Irish, but about people who lived in our area, the Lawrence area, who went on to different areas and became very well known.
Yeah, for different reasons.
Very different, totally different reasons.
Yeah.
And of course our dinner dance is on, as I said, Saturday, March 7th. Bob Gauthier from North Andover is the chairman. He's done a great job. And our luncheon chairman is Jack Leahy, who lives actually in North Salem, New Hampshire. But they're Hibernians and they'll be doing a great job. So it's going to be another great month for the Irish. Who knows? In Chicago, they turn the river green. Maybe we can make all the snow here in Lawrence green that day. But it should be a great day for the Irish. And those who wish they were Irish, and those, because everyone's, as you said, is Irish on St.
Everyone
Patrick's
turns Irish.
So that's basically what's going on, just a little synopsis. Of course, you can learn about these events as we call it the Irish Heritage Month calendars, which are free, are in all the civic centers in the area. They're in the libraries.
And that's that yellow piece of paper you have there.
Yeah, they're yellow, and they're yellow to stick out, so they don't, in the snow, if it even falls, you can see it. And so they'll be available in all the libraries and all the senior centers and civic centers, town halls, and list all the events, and many of them are free. And it should be a great time. But let's talk about your concert that's coming up on the 29th.
Oh, March 29th, Lawrence Public Library. This is our 9th year, I think.
Wonderful. And it should be a great time. And you know, Terry, I've always wondered, I've always considered you a classical pianist.
Which you are.
Which you certainly are. And I was wondering, what made you turn to like Irish music so much? What was the reason? Because you're not actually of Irish heritage. And we're just wondering, what made you, your love of Irish music so much?
Well, I am an FBI, full-blooded Italian.
Oh, that's all right. I'm an FBI, a full-blooded
Irishman, so we're both FBIs.
And I'm a mongrel.
That's all right.
He's a mongrel, but his mother told me that he's half Irish, half English, half Scottish, and half American Indian. Go figure. But anyway, I was born in Lawrence and grew up in Lawrence, and my father, as you know, was the band leader of Tony Brown's orchestra.
That's correct.
And his band played at many an Irish wedding. And so I learned a lot of Irish music by ear from hearing the orchestra playing all those beautiful Irish songs. And also, we were an Italian family in an Irish neighborhood. So all our neighbors were Irish, and I was very familiar with that beautiful Irish music ever since I was a little kid. So I always loved Irish music. And then Well, of course, I always wanted to be Irish when I was little, and then I met up with Italian opera, so I didn't mind being Italian after that.
Sure.
And the food was pretty good. But I used to say prayers, "Dear God, please let me turn Irish with blue eyes if possible." So my prayers were answered. Ta-da!
When she met?
Yeah, and we were married for a long time, and I did my classical music, and then I discovered something. George knew a lot of music and a very little bit of Irish music. But we used to go to our friends, the Lyonses and the McCarthys, for Christmas, and we would sing. I would play Irish songs that they liked on the piano, and then George started singing them. And I thought, wow, it's pretty good. Then I heard him at home. He would be singing in the shower, and I'd be in the kitchen, and I could hear these beautiful songs, and I thought, is it just the tile in the shower? And then I realized that he had a beautiful voice, untrained, but a natural singer. You know, Irish people, it's very genetic. Music is very genetic. And the tradition of oral Irish music is very, very old. And so as the grandparents sang to the children and the grandchildren, the brain plasticity and all this, little roads formed in the brain, music roads. So the oral tradition of Irish music is very old, and it's very strong. Irish people are very musical.
You know, many of the songs or ballads that come from Ireland tell the story of the history of the Irish people.
That's right.
But that's not just particular to Irish people. That comes from many nationalities, whether you be Italian, French, or Spanish. Many of their songs tell about, in their ballads, tell about things that happened in their history. And
That's
especially
right.
since we're talking about, this is mainly about Irish today because of the being March, basically that's how all those different things came to be.
Yes.
Those songs show that. And I know when you have your wonderful concert on the 29th, we'll hear some wonderful those ballads and special guests and whatever else should
Yeah.
be that day.
Well, you asked about the connection with classical, and yes, I'm classically trained.
Yes.
And I remember when I was little, I asked my piano teacher if Mendelssohn, Felix Mendelssohn, the great composer, was Irish, and she said no, he was German.
Yes, he was.
So I said, but his music sounds like it's played on a harp. It sounds Irish. And indeed, didn't the Mendelssohns move from Germany to the Emerald Isles? And his music is very Irish, but it's really very Italian. Why? Because Arcangelo Corelli, who I think was born in 1653, if I remember correctly, the great Italian composer, was a tremendous influence on all of the composers who came after him. And he influenced Irish music very, very much. And the great composers all incorporated Irish music into theirs. Beethoven, for example, in his 7th Symphony, there's a piece of music, Nora Grainer, and it is in Beethoven's 7th Symphony, which he wrote and dedicated to the Empress of Russia. So there was Beethoven, Mozart, Haydn, Handel, Berlioz, Mendelssohn, Liszt. All the great composers somehow worked Irish music into their music. There's one piece of music particularly called Eileen Arun, and Eileen is a code name for Ireland. And that is a beautiful piece of music which was used to teach the scale to children. And in Scotland it's called Robin Adair, and it's the Mixolydian scale. And all that comes from China. So what is the connection here? Well, Chinese music is written on the pentatonic scale, do, re, mi, sol, la.
Okay.
And the eru is the forerunner of the violin, and the dudazak is the forerunner of the bagpipes. So Irish music comes originally from China, through Europe, over to Ireland.
Interesting. I never knew that.
And George will tell you where it went from there.
When the Irish first immigrated here, and that's before the Great Famine, a lot of them migrated into places, not the urban areas, but into the countryside. They became cowboys, they became boatmen, they became lumberjacks, they became miners. And so their music was translated or incorporated into different songs about the area, the new areas that they belonged to. And some of the tunes that you can hear today as Western or American cowboy music, like The Streets of Laredo, The Yellow Rose of Texas, Sweet Betsy from Pike, they're all Irish tunes. And I was amazed. I can remember when I was just going to join the service back in 1956. I went down to San Antonio, and my brother was there, and I spent a month with him before I joined up. And I went to visit the Alamo, and I was amazed. Once inside the Alamo, there's a plaque, and it lists the combatants who fought against the Spanish, the Mexicans, I should say, and how many of them came from Ireland and Scotland. And it was amazing. There were very few Americans. They were from immigrants that were really fighting this battle for Texas. And another example of American history where the Irish are very prominent is in the building of the railroad. As you remember in grammar school history, the Transcontinental Railroad, the Irish started in the east and built the railroad to the west. The Chinese started in the west and built the railroad to the east. And somewhere in the middle, called Promontory Point in Utah, they met with the Golden Spike. And so the Irish quite prominent. It wasn't until after the Great Famine that the majority of the Irish settled in the urban areas. And that's where you get the typical Irish cop, fireman, or politician. But that was, those ancestors were here after the Great Famine.
Well, of course, the Irish are throughout the United States, as we know, and of course going on to other parts of the world, too. And when we think about the Irish, they played a prominent part in the history of the United States. And when you think of it, they started small, but built their way up. And eventually, as you said, some of them, they moved to the cities and took on other positions, and eventually meant sometimes politics. And in some cities, for many years, they dominated that politics, especially New York, the bigger cities, New York, Philadelphia, and shall we say Boston?
Boston.
Just thinking those through. But in the bigger cities, they did make it. And because the immigrants, when they came over, settled in those cities because that's where the jobs were.
Yeah.
And for example, Lawrence is a perfect example of that. The Irish immigrants started here, came slowly, but after the Civil War in the 1880s and so on, they came, more and more came, and eventually became a dominant part of the population here in Lawrence. And when you think of it, the first Irish Catholic mayor in New England was from Lawrence. Name, John Breen. His family's still in the city. They own a funeral business here in the city. But John Breen, I mean, he was a Hibernian as the family is. But the point is he played a very important part. And he was an Irish immigrant. And when these Irish immigrants came over, like today immigrants come over, they contribute to the area tremendously.
Yes,
and they become a
do.
fabric that makes the city what it is. And always, we hope, always look towards a positive influence.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Civil War a couple of times so far today. And short time ago, I was talking with a friend of mine, John Lyons, from North Andover. And he and I have something very much in common.
Oh, yeah.
His grandfather and my grandfather, both Irishmen, fought in the Civil War in the same regiment, the 11th Regiment from New Hampshire. They signed up in Manchester in 1863. And I was quite amazed, and I can find that on the genealogy charts.
Imagine that. And you say it becomes a small world too,
Yeah.
because someone you knew, both you had your great grandfather took part in that. And you're both friends today.
Yeah.
Even though you never knew that, you learned that along the way. You know, Lawrence, there are about 225 people from this city, men, we may add, that participated in the Civil War. And on the North Lawrence Common, that's what it was called then, now it's called the Campione Common, back about 133 years ago, they built and dedicated a monument right in the center of that park to the men of the Civil War, the people who fought. And one of the first people to die in the Civil War was a Lawrencian. And I'm not going to say the name because we want people to come to listen to our speakers. But they paid, it will say it took place in Baltimore. That's all I'll say.
Oh,
And it was
well, you
very
can tell me
interesting.
later.
I will tell you later. But we've got to realize Baltimore and Maryland was a slave state. But it did not succeed from the Union. So there were a lot of people there with Southern sympathies.
A lot of
So,
riots.
A lot of riots. And of course, what would happen is the soldiers would be mainly go down by train from where it be Lawrence, Boston, New York, Philadelphia. They'd come into Baltimore. They had a march. If you think of Boston has two train stations, North Station and South Station. They came in on what we'll consider the North Station. But they had a march to the city to get to the other station to take them south. And that's when the riots occurred in in Baltimore. And there were some people from Lawrence that were killed in that event. And we'll learn more later. We'll learn more about them on the other April 19th on March the 1st.
The other April 19th.
Right.
And that's at the Heritage Center?
It's the Heritage State Park Center right down here on Jackson Street, 1 Jackson Street. We're very fortunate, Lawrence, to have a Heritage State Park in this
Yes,
city.
it's a treasure. That place is wonderful.
And of course, that started out as basically one of the boarding houses. That's what it was originally. It was built as a boarding house. Along Canal Street, in that area, there were basically boarding houses because many of the people who worked in the mills, and of course the mills were right along the river, as we remember, the Merrimack, many of the people who worked in those mills were women. They came, many of them from Ireland, but they came from other countries, and they naturally did not have the financial point to buy a home or to rent a home on their own. So they rented a room, and that's where they lived. And that's one, I believe, it's the only one left standing in Lawrence. And they made that about in around 1980 when they created the Heritage State Park system in Massachusetts. That became the Visitor Center. And it's a fabulous center, has lots of Lawrence history in it, and we do hope that people come down and see that. Just not the Irish exhibit, but it's a treasure, as you said, right here in Lawrence. And then, of course, they take also, the Heritage State Park is just not there. There's the park system in Lawrence on the south and north side of the city that they take care of. Lawrence has many hidden treasures.
It does. And let's not forget the libraries.
The libraries, you know, we're very fortunate. We have 2 libraries in the city, one on the north side, one on the south side. The north side is about 40 years old. I believe they built the present building back around 1973. It was dedicated, and so it's just a little over 40 years old. In the south side, of course, that replaced, the one on the north side replaced the one that was across from St. Mary's Church on the corner of Hampshire and Havel Street, thank you. And of course, the one in South Lawrence has been there for about 75, 80 years. It's really a gift to the people of South Lawrence and other places because people do not have to travel across the sea. You've got to realize many people in those days had to walk when that was built.
Yes,
and the
that's
transportation wasn't as it is today. But that center, the library in South Lawrence, houses many treasures. And one of them happens to be the Irish Hibernian Collection, which is a collection of about 10,000 plus books, videos, magazines, newspapers, and memorabilia about Ireland. It's a treasure. It's probably one of the largest Irish collections on the east coast of the United States, and it's right here in Lawrence.
I know, it's beautiful.
And it is beautiful. People come there many times through the interlibrary system. They collect books and from there and more or less read them and so on. We're very fortunate to have such a treasure in this city. So we say Lawrence has many treasures, and that's one of them right here. And of course, all you need is a library card to take a book out, or you don't even need a library card. You can go over and visit it to see the memorabilia.
We have visited it quite a bit. And they have CDs, they have newspapers, and they have books, and of course Irish literature. Maybe next time, if there is a next time, we'll discuss Irish literature, my favorite kind of literature. I love those Irish writers.
Well,
So-
certainly if you go there, you'll find quite a few.
I already have found quite,
and,
but
you
there
said-
are always more.
And you
right?
know, and you mentioned music. There's not just CDs, the records that,
Yeah.
that you really can't buy anymore, you can take out from there and bring them home and listen to. And of course, they're all Irish, so, and it's not just Irish music the first time of the year, they also have Christmas music.
Yeah.
So in other words,
They have
there's-
everything.
They have everything you'd need.
Yeah.
So it's a great opportunity. We're very fortunate. And we're really looking forward to this concert because we start off with lectures, we have some social events, and we end with this fantastic
We end with a
concert.
song.
We end with a song. That's right. We go out singing.
Well, that's true. So I would like to invite everyone to the Lawrence Public Library, 51 Lawrence Street in Lawrence on March 29th at 2 p.m. George and I will be doing some Irish music. We have some guests joining us, and it will be a good time for all. There will be a reception later, and we will end the month of March with some lovely music. So we hope to see you there on March 29th. Bill, thank you very much for
It's been a-
explaining all that exciting stuff.
It's going to be a great time in the great city of Lawrence, the whole
Yes.
month of March.
So thank you for watching Meet the Musicians, and we hope to see you soon. This is Terry Kelly, Bill Sullivan, and George Kelly saying goodbye for now.